So we're finally going to finish these notes. It's only taken us about 8 weeks of the 3 weeks that we've been in school, but we are going to finally finish logical fallacy notes. On Friday this week, you do have a logical fallacy quiz. It's going to be matching. You're going to have terms on one side. It's not going to be every single fallacy that we have in the notes, but you'll have term on one side and then definition and or example on the other. Traditionally, it's probably the quiz that people have struggled with the most. So I'm not saying as if it's going to be the the decibel grades or anything like that. It's not worth 100 points or anything. But I think if you go over the terms, come Thursday night or Friday during lunch before you have the ninth period, might not necessarily be enough. So this afternoon, I'm sending out a link for Remind. It'll be a link, a Quizlet link, that'll have all the terms, the definitions, and whatnot. So that would be something that you could certainly use, going through your notes and things like that. But don't let the Friday quiz kind of sneak up on you. There's not any reading assignments that you have to go along with. It's just going to be the definitions and or examples that you would be matching up. So if we had some kind of question like Andrew's brother Colin was a total disruption in class. I don't want to have Andrew in class. He's going to be just as bad. You'd be able to mark off that there's like that false analogy taking place, which I think was like the last definition that we were able to do on Friday. So be an example. You'd have to read the example, figure out what's going on, and then make that connection between the two people. So it's certainly not going to be anything impossible, but just make sure you do look over the terms so you're ready to go. Yeah. Shay, you good with yours? Andrew? Bless you. So that quiz will be on Friday. Today we're going to finish off logical fallacy notes. And then tomorrow is when, indirectly, we're going to start bouncing around ideas of issues, topics that you want to look at within kind of like a spar debate format. And we'll start going over that in a little bit more detail. But things that are relevant today, information that will be going on, things that you want to discuss, this is going to be the opportunity to do that. We might have a little bit of time at the end of the period to start talking about it, but chances are it'll probably be happening tomorrow. Later on in the week then, we're going to be setting up some projects through Noodlebib, which is not meant to be scary or terrible or anything like that. I know a lot of you probably haven't used Noodlebib since 9th grade, maybe 10th grade. Has anyone in here never used Noodlebib for school? Not that you have to remember your username and password right now, but you have never set up an account or used one to your knowledge. Anybody actually remember their username and password? Caitlin, some people. Username's a piece of cake because it's the same one you use a lot on the computer, and your password is NHSC unless you changed it since then. But if you forget what it is again, we'll get you through it. It shouldn't be problematic, but everyone has at least used it at some point. It's good to get that. Any weekend highlights?
Haley and I went on a date.
Did you ride a bike for 42 miles?
No, but
No.
we took a long hike. Yeah, I did.
Is this also your highlight of the weekend, or no?
How
I
do you
have
get
better
that one?
I'm about to leave the room.
Like, but you won't.
That's too far.
Well, I'm glad it was a highlight, and I hope it wasn't a low light for you. So, okay.
It was, but like,
I got a new poster for my classroom. The 8-year-old Addie made me ignore her comma placement after the conjunction, but things are tough, but never give up.
Is that a turtle?
It's a turtle with a top hat. She's making a literary allusion to the Grapes of Wrath, so I think that's pretty good. On the back of her special triangles quiz, 3rd grade is not what it used to be. So we'll put it right there. Never. It's actually one that you probably took last year. Remember labeling the sides of the triangle? Probably did. Hopefully it went okay for you. Cosine 45-degree angles.
No way.
Yeah.
what you're asking?
Yeah.
Like cosine?
Cosine 45 degree.
I reflect
Whatever.
Alright.
Okay, good job. Proud of you.
Nice.
No, she's not doing trig in 3rd grade. Calm down.
That'd be impressive.
Would be. She's definitely not, though. I can tell you that much. False analogy, I think, was the last one we did. Is that correct? Oh, we were in black and white. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay, we'll get back to false analogy eventually. Slowly. Hello. We're good with that one. Okay. And then I think here was when the bell was starting to come to the end for us. All right, so false analogy I was alluding to with Andrew. Those of you who are a sibling, especially younger siblings, are probably aware of this. So it would be claiming the two situations, they are the same. They share all characteristics, all qualities, based on them sharing at least one kind of thing. So Chris and Caitlin share the same last name, same family. So therefore, whatever he was like as a student, you would be exactly the same. Obviously, going to be robots of one another. So if you were getting judged based on an older sibling, false analogy would be taking place. Now, I guess you could have an older sibling who was a total ruination of the family name, and you're carrying on that torch, or you could be the good one, as is your case. Okay. So just because two things share one similarity doesn't mean they're going to be the same all the time. And stereotypes in regular everyday society is going to be a similar idea where you're assuming all things are going to be the same just because of one resemblance. Mr. Dane, hello. A little bit, that's all right. I figured I'll stop down at the end of the day to get some forms. Is there anything you need? Okay. Okay. I didn't count it yet, but I'd say probably maybe more than half. Did you get the email that like shared it with you? No, like Saturday night, like a link to. Okay. Okay, then you should have a link to it. Not saying that I need you to put them in or anything, but yeah, probably be about half, I would say right now. So we'll be alright. But yeah, I'll see you at the end of the day. All right, bye. Not going to get into the video with this one because it's kind of lengthy, but basically he is arguing that U.S. Going into Iraq after 9/11 is going to be the same situation that happened with Vietnam based on some factors, some similarities that there are. So essentially, false analogy is kind of getting used to forecast what is going to happen, kind of similar to the way that slippery slope would, but finding at least one or two parallels between two very different situations and going, therefore, they're going to have the exact same end result. Now, there certainly could be cases where it is true. You might have some characteristics where they do share some similarities, and it does result in having a very similar outcome, but you can't assume that that's just going to happen on its own. That would be a false analogy that would be taking place. All right, ad hominem. Can't do this one. Bad, Caitlin. You like this one? Do you tend to use it? I don't know. Okay. Again, going with our Latin phrases that we have, to the man. It's basically attack on a person's character, but it would not be relevant to the issue at hand. So essentially, you're usually trying to undermine a person's authority or credibility. Don't listen to anything that Sean says. He still watches cartoons at the age of 17. Nothing. I still watch them at the age of however old I am. What's your favorite?
Always. That's a good one. What's your favorite?
PJ Masks is pretty popular. Little kids in pajamas fighting crime. Thinking a lot of options for Halloween. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Very good.
Star Wars Rebels. We were Sabine last year. I was not, but other people were. You can't simply attack a person's credibility if it has absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. So whether it be don't listen to that guy, he watches cartoons. You can't listen to what that person has to say. He or she is a Republican. You can't attack character just to simply go, this person is not any good. Now, if it's relevant to the issue, now you have something to look at. But if you were to go, I'm not going to listen to Dr. So-and-so's advice about the effects of smoking. I know he cheated on his wife. That has nothing to do with his medical knowledge. You might not like what the person has done, but if he's telling you bad things about cigarettes and lung cancer, he's probably still going to be correct about it. So to simply attack a person when there is the absence of evidence or any kind of valid argument, that's when ad hominem is going to take place. So 2 videos. First one's a little weird, kind of creepy, funny at the same time. Second one is a way in which ad hominem would get used and would be pretty well accepted within today's world. The volume on this one's a little low, so turn off the air conditioner. Have you ever seen the Batman Dad YouTube videos? Similar voice.
Kitchen table. Cats aren't supposed to be on the kitchen table, are they? No, they're not. Cats, they're reckless, too dangerous for America. And look at this face. Do you see that? That's called scorn. What's he so angry about? Anyway, I don't think he likes living in the land of the free. That's probably because he's a socialist. Don't believe it? Well, listen to this. Yes, that's right. He just said, "Mom." Coincidence? I don't think so. Cats. We don't have proof they aren't communists. It's even worse than that. Cats violate our borders, ignoring the rule of law. Look at this cat. It probably just ate a songbird. Ask yourself, hasn't your backyard been a little quieter than usual? Cats. They're angry, rage-filled beasts that break the law, eat songbirds, and they're probably secretly socialists that hate America. Cats. Too extreme for America. This message brought to you by the Committee to Elect Dogs. Dogs, man's best friend for a reason.
Any of them look like Shadow? Or Smokey? Smudgy? No, okay. Hello?
Mr. Buckley? Mr. Buckley,
Yes?
you're a witness.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Thank you.
What's our setting? Okay, we're in a courtroom. A Time to Kill, John Grisham novel, and then also a film. This is a scene coming from that. If you're unfamiliar with the book or the movie, you're going to see Samuel L. Jackson. He's a defendant. He has shot 2 people who raped his daughter, who's under 10. So part of the defense for Samuel L. Jackson's character is that at the moment that he shot the people, he is temporarily insane, unstable, isn't able to tell the difference between right, wrong, all that kind of stuff. So the defense has just had a doctor, a psychologist come to the stand and explain why he would have been temporarily insane at the time, therefore should not be found guilty.
Morning. Dr. Bass, could you please state for the record your full name?
Willard Terrell Bass.
Terrell Bass. That's a very unique name. Now, Doctor, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
No, of course not.
You're certain?
Yeah.
As certain of that as you are of the testimony you've just given before this jury?
Of course.
All right, so let me just understand this now. Since you are under oath, you're telling me and this jury that on October 17th, 1960, you were not convicted of statutory rape?
Objection, Your Honor. Dr. Bass is not on trial here.
Your Honor, this goes to the heart of the credibility of the witness.
Overruled. Continue, Mr. Buckley.
Thank you. Now, Doctor, were you convicted of statutory rape?
You got the wrong man.
Really? Well, I have some mighty interesting photographs of you taken with a female underage in a motel by the Dallas Police Department on September 11th, 1960. Would you like to look at these visual images and see if they refresh your memory? No, I didn't think so. Your Honor, we would like to enter into evidence these court and police records showing that on September 15th, 1960, this man, one Terrell Bass, pled guilty to statutory rape. Now, Doctor, I'm going to ask you one last time. Were you or were you not convicted of statutory rape?
Well, I can explain.
I'm not interested in your explanation, Doctor. Just answer the question, yes or no.
Yes, yes, I was.
That's enough.
I have nothing further.
So what's he able to do to the jury in relation to the doctor's testimony?
Make them not trust them.
Okay, make them not trust him, and he's not doing, number one, he's not doing anything that we would find to be out of like courtroom etiquette. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to do as a prosecutor, but he's not doing anything that is saying his testimony, what he said, the words, the logic is invalid, but he's able to completely discredit the testimony by attacking the credibility of him, or essentially the ethos. So it's an ad hominem in the sense that he's not attacking the argument, he's attacking the character. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's not reason, there's not logic behind it, and most people would certainly accept that within the courtroom. Alec, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's not a complete lack of something to do with the argument though, because it wasn't the case you said about someone being shot because he raped the daughter of the defendant.
Correct.
So, was he trying to relate the two?
Well,
And see that he was trying to give the guy,
I
I don't know. It
I
seems
wouldn't.
a little-
You're right in the fact that there's and the case itself is for the killing of the at the time they're accusers. They haven't been found guilty of the rape or anything, although it's well understood that they did in fact do it. It's I guess you could argue somewhat ironic that he is using his testimony. The defense attorney is using his testimony as a reason to validate the killing of the people who committed the rape, yet at the same time, he's also guilty. Statutory rape would be a different degree, but certainly still a very serious crime that would be taking place. That there's some similar context as to what both have been convicted or accused of. But so far as the logic of the doctor as to why, and I forget, Carl Lee is Samuel Jackson's character, the testimony as to why he would not be fit for trial, or he's not saying at that moment what Kevin Spacey is doing doesn't tie into that logic. Again, not going that he's incorrect with the approach that he's taken, but it's not a direct relation to the argument. But you certainly could go, who's providing this idea? It's that doctor, who I would view as being credible because of the prefix to the name doctor, but now this event that I've just learned about, that certainly does lessen his credibility as a doctor. The jury now has to go, does that lessen the authority of which he presented the argument as to why Carl Lee would be temporarily insane? And for some people, it actually would sway their minds, and others it might not. So I would say that's a way of using ad hominem, certainly to Kevin Spacey's, the prosecutor's advantage, and within a realm that people would certainly find acceptable. I mean, if you or I were a prosecutor and we had that ace up our sleeve to really could defame a witness, we would be fired if our superior found out that we had that information, but we did not proceed to use it. So he certainly has to go along with this as well. Okay, next one, Texas sharpshooter. If a person is going to claim to be a very good sharpshooter, how do they go about proving it? They're going to shoot, whether it be gun, bow, and arrow, and generally we want them to hit a specific target. Texas sharpshooter is the idea that Caitlin or I, who are not skilled in archery or firearms, unless there's something about you that I don't know, we go to show how good we are by taking a couple shots, side of a barn, wall. Then what do we do to prove that we're really good? After we've taken the shots, we then draw the bullseye. So we can then brag to our friends and family, hey, look what we did. Middle target, bam, just like that. What have we done? We already have a piece of evidence, and now we're building the argument around the evidence to fit a certain idea that we want to convey. And so for Texas sharpshooter, you're locating some data to suit a pre-existing presumption or conclusion, some kind of argument that you have. You're not really shooting at the middle of the target, but you have some kind of information, and then you build the data around that argument that you have. You take a look at the example down here, and this is a true statement. Global, at least the second part of it should be. Global warming should be less of a concern. Worldwide CO2 emissions dropped in 2015. And 2015 was the first year in, I think it was over 30 years, that global CO2 emissions went down. Why is CO2 emissions important when it comes to global warming? Well, as carbon dioxide is emitted, that has the greenhouse gas effect, wreaking havoc upon the ozone layer and things like that. If you know that worldwide CO2 emissions have dropped, what does that tell you? Or what do you hope it tells you? What might be happening? Apparently not much.
The problem's being fixed, so it doesn't require.
Good for us. We're no longer driving Ford 350 F-350 2 miles per gallon diesel trucks that are going to wreck everything apart. We're now in our hybrid Priuses zooming along at a nice economical 70 miles per gallon. We are doing things that are making the world a better place so our children and grandchildren will have a happy habitat to enjoy for years to come. Good job. Good job. Enjoy those cartoons. Well done. Anyone know why CO2 emissions have probably gone down since 2015? Could be new trend. We finally figured it out. Like not using as much gas? Sort of, but not necessarily for like automobiles. Anyone know who has the world's largest economy? Like what country has the largest economy in the world? China. I like how we draw it out. Yeah, China. They have like billions of people and they make lots of things. Anyone know how China's economy is doing right now? It's in a little bit of a dry spell, way down. So guess who has had a lot less manufacturing and construction, infrastructure, all of those things? China. CO2 emissions for Japan, the United States, Germany, Great Britain have all gone up. The one major player where they have gone down is China. And so chances are it's not because we're creating a new trend where Alec and I are going to take care of the world. There's less jobs, less people, less manufacturing taking place, so those CO2 emissions are happening. If you assume that China's economy is going to be down below for the next 30, 40 years, we're going to be okay. If you think that it's going to rebound, what's probably going to happen come the time the data comes out for 2016, 2017, 2018, CO2 emissions are going right back up. Now, if let's say Elise finds a statistic and is looking to make her argument for global warming, it's not that she's purposely doing a Texas sharpshooter, but she's finding a bit of evidence, a bit of data to support her argument, but she's not looking to see what those necessarily factors would be to it. And a lot of times we try to find evidence to fit our preconceived notion rather than find evidence and then build an argument around it. And that's where you come into the whole issue about that Texas sharpshooter. Are you really finding evidence for the sake of trying to come up with a conclusion, or do you already have an existing presumption and you're just trying to find facts that are ultimately going to support it, or statistics that you can use to probably try to support it? Alec, did you have an additional question, or no? Okay. Very much like non sequitur, red herring is one of those kind of inclusive terms that can use a lot of arguments. It also makes me think of Swedish fish, which are by far the best candy known to men. Kaylee, do you have a favorite candy? There you go. Kaylee, do you have a favorite candy? Like the cups or the Reese's Pieces? Reese's cups. This could be smart of me at some point. I did Reese's cup on a s'more over the weekend.
I did that before.
I feel like it was almost too thick, like the chocolate didn't quite melt, but
You tried the s'moreos instead of graham crackers, you put it in between an Oreo. It's pretty awesome.
I'll try that. Someone told me that if you get the what's the little chocolate squares, the Ghirardelli, like the fancier ones that they have like a caramel inside, it's like the perfect size for the graham cracker. So, in case you want to explore. Red herring is when evidence, argument, tangents, attacks, whatever. So this could be ad hominem, could be non sequitur, could be straw man. It could be faulty emotional appeal. Information gets inserted to divert attention away from the issue at hand. So the one example, I think it was back on Wednesday, the faulty emotional appeal, where the kid would not eat his sheep brains and liver. But there were starving kids throughout the world. You know, if Sean is refusing to eat his Brussels sprouts and beet salad, and we go, but there's starving kids everywhere, you need to eat it, we're doing a red herring where we're trying to bring in guilt and divert the attention away from the fact of, it doesn't matter if I eat my food or not, there's still going to be starving kids. So red herring, similar to non sequitur, you're bringing in some kind of information to distract attention away from the issue at hand. When Addie asked me, when is it okay to lie, I was guilty of red herring when I turned up the radio. Hey, your favorite song's on. Let's listen to this. I'm diverting her attention away from the issue that would be at hand as to why I'm a terrible parent. But then she made good posters for the classroom, so we're okay. Circular reasoning. I'm sorry to say you are probably guilty of this at some point in your life, usually on short essay test questions, depending upon what you do. Circular reasoning, begging the question, will also be a term that gets used for it. It's a sort of reasoning that is fallacious in the sense that you are basically restating the conclusion as evidence for your argument. You don't come up with new support, you just keep recycling the same thing over and over and over again. So, if you had like a U.S. history question about what were 3 issues that happened during the Reconstruction period in post-Civil War America, and you're going, I need to come up with 3 reasons or 3 issues, I can come up with 1. What do you do with that 1 reason? Split it into 3 or restate it 2 different times, but you word it differently so it seems like it's a different reason. That's going to be begging the question or circular reasoning. Your argument is going around in a circle. You're not presenting new ideas, but you're trying to pass it off as that. Alex stole my bike because he's the kind of kid who would do that. Alex stole my bike because I think Alex stole my bike is basically what I'm saying. Or if someone had an argument that the belief in God is universal because everybody believes in God. You're basically saying everyone believes in God because everyone believes in God. It does not work. The argument just keeps going around in circles over and over and over again. Luke, which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek? Okay. Some people would say neither. Which is right, neither or neither. That could be a smart debate. Either, either. Tomato, tomato. I don't know. No. My mom says weird things. Basil, you know what basil is? She calls it basil, which is apparently valid pronunciation according to dictionary.com. Yes, I didn't realize this. Mozzarella, she calls it mozzarella. Like, it's cheese.
Pasta. At least your name.
What?
Pasta.
For pasta?
Yeah. They say that.
I've never passed. Aunt and aunt. That used to be a big one.
You should get the point across.
Interviewer. So, you're looking for a job. So you are Bill. Interviewer goes, your resume looks impressive, but I still need another reference. Bill goes, well, Jill can give me a good reference. Interviewer does not know Jill, so good, but how do I know that Jill is trustworthy? Bill's response, well, I can certainly vouch for her. Basically, what is Bill doing? He's giving himself a reference. He is referencing, yes, I would be a good candidate for this job. I think you should hire me. Let's shake hands and be done with it. So he is going, Jill would be able to give me a good reference. I can certainly vouch for her, so this should be okay. So basically, he is just vouching for himself. The sound to this was kind of annoying second period. We're going to see if it got any better. Come on, cursor guy.
What an escape. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he was assigned command of the Federation's flagship. He's great, all right, but I don't know that he's the best. They gave him command of the flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. Captain Kirk is the Enterprise's commander, and the Enterprise is the Federation's flagship, isn't it? Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, that proves it. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he was assigned command of the Federation's flagship. Excuse me, gentlemen. I couldn't help overhearing. Yes, sir? The argument you are employing, Mr. Kyle, is not logical. In fact, it exhibits the fallacy of petitio principii, also known as circular reasoning or begging the question. The argument seems to make sense. That may be so, but the form of the argument is invalid. Arguments employing this fallacy all assume a premise statement which has the same meaning as the conclusion. You essentially were saying that Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet and assigned to Starfleet's flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. You employed circular reasoning because the phrase no other captain was as good as he is the same as saying he is the best starship captain in the fleet. Oh, indeed. That is not to say that Captain Kirk is not the best captain in the fleet, Lieutenant. I believe he is. It's just that your argument does nothing to prove it. Thank you, Commander Spock. Yes, I should rethink what I'm trying to say. That would be best.
Sean, I think you should. This is like real Saturday morning cartoon that would just be teaching the masses.
That it does not exhibit one of the logical fallacies, such as petitio principii or begging the question. It's only logical.
The extra last question is going to be, can you pronounce whatever he said? There you go. All right, last one we're going to take a look at, and then we are done. Congratulations, you've made it. Equivocation. This is when you shift the definition of a term in mid-argument. So it's going to be somewhat of an extended argument, but you change the meaning of an important term. I would say most likely this is probably going to be by accident. It's not something that people purposely do, although TV commercials where they're trying to pitch a product, they'll do something like this where they'll kind of shift the meaning of a term. But within an argument, you change the meaning of a concept. So this first example, in our society, everyone needs to be literate. What does literacy mean? It's the ability to read, write. You would be surprised how many people in our society are so illiterate that they use the word like in every other sentence. What skill is being now introduced? We're going from literacy, the ability to read and write, to now someone being illiterate, which according to this is the inability to speak appropriately or properly. So that term has completely shifted. There's nothing wrong with the fact that it goes from literacy to illiteracy, but the problem is that now that meaning of illiteracy has completely shifted. You go with the second example, and this is being a little bit more of a trick. Nothing is better than steak. Nothing is better than 16-ounce porterhouse, a little bit of Montreal steak seasoning on it, medium rare, just enough juice and blood coming out. Nothing is better than steak. Hot dogs are better than nothing. Well, if nothing is better than steak and hot dogs are better than nothing, transitive property would tell us that hot dogs are therefore better than steak. What's happened?
I get it.
The term nothing has shifted where nothing is better than steak. You could take any food item out there and it would not be better than steak. Whereas hot dogs are better than nothing, hot dogs are better than starving, the absence of food. So nothing has shifted, which allows for that statement, therefore, to be true or not to be true if you're following through with the transitive property. When it comes to arguments, certainly one of the things that the people will talk about, legalization of marijuana becomes pretty popular. Arguments will go, hey, marijuana is a totally natural substance. So naturally, people should be able to use it. Nature means coming from the environment. Naturally, you're shifting the definition to more so, therefore, obviously. It's a subtle little change, but a lot of times people will use that equivocation to try to bring together two reasons as to how what the validity would be for that argument to hold through. So a little bit, probably I think I have it for 3:15. You'll be getting a reminder from me if you signed up for it, where I'll send these things out as a Quizlet. If you didn't sign up for a reminder, you still want the Quizlet, the Google Calendar has it under today's date, just a link to it. So if you have the Quizlet app, we'll latch onto it. If you don't, it'll just go online. But that might be something we help to review the terms for Friday when we start going over these for matching quiz. For tomorrow, start thinking about when you hear 2016, and you think about the year 2016, if you were to kind of have one of those time capsule ideas, capsule box, that you're going to put in information or things about today, what would you start to list for 2016? That's going to be our starting point for tomorrow, and then from there we'll go off into how we're going to develop some arguments. Hopefully we'll put more in our time capsule than trash. Maybe not. Recyclable trash. That'd be great.
Nope.
We're setting them up very long in our time capsules.